All right, guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome to a fun live episode of the Hand of the Day. I am joined by a bunch of people here on a Zoom call, which I'm going to have a chance to talk with a few people here, answer some questions, and most excitingly go over a hand that Gareth played. And Gareth is part of our Elite Mastermind program. We've been working together closely for the last couple months, and he was kind enough to jump on this call and share a hand of poker that he played. Very interesting hand from a cash game, and we're going to go over it together today. So without further ado, let's jump right into the hand, and then I'll open this up for questions from, Gareth and I will have a nice chat back and forth about some of his thoughts in the hand. Then I'll open it up for questions from the audience as well. I want to make sure I get to some of your guys' questions on the show, and I'm excited. Hopefully, tech pending, we have an awesome show. So let's do it. I'm going to share this hand here. All right, so Gareth, I'm going to play the hand, and can you see the screen? Awesome. So we got a very interesting hand here. We're going to jump right into it. Under the gun is a straddle, from my understanding, correct, to $4? So we have second position makes it 15. We're next to act with aces, and we're about 150 big blinds deep here. About 200 big blinds deep here, effectively because of the straddle. So close to 200 big blinds deep. We're going to come in for a 3-bet right away. I love that. Totally standard with aces. We get a cold call from the hijack. And, stopping right here, what do you make of that cold call? What do you know about the hijack? And he's capable of calling incorrectly there, is what you're saying. Okay. So this is really important information. I mean, if you're analyzing this hand in a vacuum or on paper, and someone sends you this hand, or you're playing online maybe, their first inclination is to think that they have a very narrow hand range here because they're supposed to, right? So someone calling $45 or a bet and a 3-bet cold with 200 big blinds, they're supposed to have something like, tens, nines or tens plus type of a hand range, right? They're supposed to have top 10, top 15% of hands. But what I'm hearing from you is a completely different story. And so right away, analyzing what your opponents have based on what you know about them, making an exploitative read is really important in these live cash games, because that's going to play into our decision later on in the hand when we analyze their range pre-flop. Then from that point, we can make inferences about the hands they're likely to have post-flop. So I love that analysis from you there. That gives us a ton of information. Thank you for that. And let's keep going. We have folds around here, pretty much expecting it to go fold, 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 call, which is what happens. And we go 3 ways to the flop. All right, we got... Oh, really? It must just be a delay on your end, because I was playing through the hand. I'm sorry about that. Let's see. You have to select full screen. So is it easier to see now? Okay. What about now? Sorry, guys. Thanks for bearing with me with tech difficulties. Yeah, I see that you can't see it. So let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm doing like 6 things at once. Hold on. So on the Zoom call, there we go. Is that better? Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go back to where we were. We have a 3-bet here to 45, folds around to mid position who calls. We go 3 ways to the flop. Pretty standard. I think we're going to expect that a lot of the time, right? He has a ton of incentive to call, closing the action here. King 9-4. Pretty good flop for us. We flop, over pair with a backdoor nut flush draw. Pretty good flop for us. Dry board. Good news. So now we have a really interesting line where mid position bets out. Now, what do you know about mid position and what do you make of this bet? That's really weird to see that. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, in one hand, on one sense, I'm seeing, okay, his range could be narrower than other people's, meaning, he's more likely to have strong hands than other people. On the other side of the coin, the nutted hands that he can have just aren't that many. It's really unlikely he's going to have king 9, and if he does, there's only 3 possibilities of king 9. King 9 of spades, king 9 of hearts, king 9 of diamonds. But he's probably not going to raise preflop early position with king 9. So I'm kind of ruling out that hand right away. I think he could have something like 9s or 4s. Those hands make sense. But some of the time he's going to check raise with those. So, I'm not saying he can have every possibility of 9s and 4s because some of the time he's going to check raise. He could have kings, but he's probably going to 4-bet preflop with that hand. So it's unlikely he has kings. The question I have for you, Garrett, is could he have something like ace-king or king-queen here and be leading for value with like an ace-king type of hand? Yep. Yeah, I would agree with you there. I actually think, check call makes more sense with those hands as well. That's what I would do. But I mean, everybody plays differently, right? So I didn't know if you had a read on this particular opponent. Yeah, I would say those hands are in the check call range. So I think when we look at his hand range here, we could kind of eliminate some hands and make it seem, more. It seems like it's more polar to me. It seems like it's hands like draws, like maybe Jack 10 of clubs or something like that, or it's a hand like a set, like 9s or 4s. It doesn't seem to me like he's going to be leading a dry king, especially with what you told me about this type of opponent. But the one thing that makes me think that a king is a little bit more likely than otherwise is just the size of his bet. He bet so small. If you look back here, he bet 1/3 of the pot. So if he bet, 125, I think a king is less likely. Betting 55 into 150 makes, king a little bit more likely, in my opinion. What do you think? He doesn't think much. I muted you. That's why. Sorry, buddy. I just muted you. I wanted to hear what you had to say. Yes. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting to analyze his range. Obviously, we're not going to be folding here. We have too strong of a hand to fold. We're not going to just be folding 2 aces. But regardless of whether or not we're calling or folding, it's important to right away be analyzing what we think our opponent has because it gives us insight into how to play the hand the best way possible. And it also gives us insight into his hand later on. So we go ahead and call 55 here, which I think is totally standard. And now the guy behind us calls, which I would say doesn't really mean that much to me. Given what you told me about him, given the fact that he closes the action and he's getting an amazing price, something like 5-1, he can really have anything. He can have like 9-8 suited here, in my opinion, right? Something as weak as that. Yep. What do you think? Okay. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm not really looking too much into what he has. I'm not too concerned about it. And I think that's also important to notice. So it's really interesting to see how polar the ranges are here between one and the other, because you're seeing how different they are just between two different opponents. All right, let's continue here. So we got the turn comes a 4 of clubs, and he leads out 185 now. So he's betting out when the club comes. What do you make of his range at this point? Jack 10 of clubs. Yeah, for sure. Totally. Those hands are like now 100% check. I mean, if he was leading those hands on the flop, now it's 100% a check. So it's really interesting. I mean, if you look at his range on the flop, right? Basically like flush draws or sets or maybe kings. We don't really beat any of that range on the turn. Like we beat the kings, but those hands aren't going to bet. We don't beat, quads or nines full. We don't beat any flush draws. And we basically eliminated bluffs from his range because A, he wouldn't bet the flop with bluffs, and B, he's just not that type of player. So we really don't beat anything that this guy has, assuming he's the type of player we think he is. That being said, we still have quite a bit of outs given our price. So we're calling more based on, our pot odds rather than, you could see here he bets 185 into, so the pot's 500, we're calling 185. We're calling more for our odds and trying to improve and double up on the river than we are strictly for, the value of our hand. And that's an important distinction to make. Yeah, it's an important distinction to make that's why we're calling the turn. We're not calling because aces might be the best hand. So it's really important to just be able to identify that right away, because that gives us insight into what we should be doing on the river depending on what river comes and how we're going to play it. So we opt to call here on the turn, getting a pretty good price with some implied odds if we hit, and the hijack calls as well. So when the hijack overcalls, even though, he's a loose kind of crazy player, when he overcalls here, it's like, even more likely that, it's more likely he actually has something at this point, because even loose crazy players eventually sort of play well at some point, and when they have, in a 3-bet pot and multiple action and the board pairs and a club comes, he's probably not going to be calling the turn with 9x. I don't think he's that crazy. He's going to be having a flush, a king with a club, maybe if he's a little out of line. That would be an out of line call, but it's important to put him on a range as well, even though he is loose, aggressive maniac. It's still an important exercise to be doing, to think about what does he have and what should our strategy be against him on the river, depending on what comes. So let's move on to the river here. The river comes a king, which is a terrible card for us, because now there's, I'd say, pretty much zero chance we have the best hand. I rarely drop the hammer here and say there's no chance, but I think here there's just, in 3-way pot, given this run out, we actually don't beat anything. So, the question is, should we bluff and rep a king? That's really the only thing I would be thinking here on this river. Should I rep something like ace king? Which, mid position can't really have a king. He's never going to play. He's never got a king, but he's never got a king because he's not going to play a king that way on the turn. So he just never has a king. So his range is what we call capped, meaning the best hand he can have is a flush or a boat, like nines full. I guess he could have quad fours, but you take your chances. So he never really, he's going to have a tough spot to call. But the one reason why I don't really love betting is our stack is so small. You know, it's like 460 into 860, so it doesn't apply a ton of pressure. And if we had something like 800, it would make me lean towards shoving a little bit more. The one thing I would be wondering that I actually am more worried about in this spot is, what does the hijack have? In fact, his range is a little bit more likely to be a king, in my opinion. Something like... Sorry, someone's talking in... Someone's mic is not muted. I'm sorry, guys. We're learning about Southwest Airlines here. So the one thing I would be a little bit worried about is the hijack having a king, which I think is... I'm trying to mute people while I'm talking. Is definitely possible, given his line of action. What were your thoughts? What was going through your mind in this spot? Right. Totally. Yeah, flushes. Yeah. Jack 10 of clubs. Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I would be thinking too. I would be thinking here, you know, from a game theory standpoint, what would be going through my mind is like, okay, you know, this is one of the worst hands I can have. I block ace king. I could easily have ace king with the ace of clubs. Like this, you know, this hand makes a lot of sense to bluff with, but I would be trying to weigh how often the hijack has a king based on how he called on the turn. And I would try and use some live reads to understand that situation a little bit better. Like, did he him and haw call on the turn? Did he auto call the turn? Was he like, what was he doing on the turn, you know? And like a him and haw call might make me a little bit more worried, because he might do that with something like a king. If he like, so did he check his cards? Is he like that exploitable that he has those sorts of tells on the turn? All those things would play into my decision, and I would sort of think about that. But I think, in short, if we had more, I would like it a little bit more, because I just think it's going to get through a little bit more often against getting someone to fold. Sometimes people get stubborn in live poker in pots where the bet is so small, they're like, I have to call, whatever. Anyway, we do elect to check. That's sort of the analysis behind the situation. We elect to check. Now the hijack goes all in, which kind of confirms our read that he probably has a king here. Mid position calls, and we have a very easy fold here on the river. So kind of anticlimactic situation in terms of, you know, we're not involved in the hand on the river, but I think it's still really interesting to see the analysis. What ends up happening is somehow the hijack has queen 10 with a club, which is quite insane. He should never have that hand. That's pretty special. And mid position calls it off with nines full. So I think, yeah, needless to say, we won't analyze too much the hijack's hand. I think everyone watching the stream is pretty clear that they're not going to wind up with queen 10 in that spot, hopefully. So nines full also, I think, played it fine as well. That was one of the suspicious hands we had. Sorry about the graphics. He did not have the nine of clubs. The game was not rigged. We just put the nine of clubs there. But don't mind us. Apologies for that. But yep. Yeah, it's an interesting spot for sure. It's really interesting how well you can analyze the mid position's range and basically know that he never has a king there. I think that's part of the reason why he may be called with nines full, because that's like the best hand he could pretty much have. And he knows the hijack's pretty crazy too. apparently he was, also on board with the fact that the hijack is capable of having bluffs there. I would say against, a normal opponent, a normal opponent really isn't going to be in on the turn with a king as well. So it's really hard to put a normal opponent here on a range because a normal opponent isn't really going to bet the river. They're going to always have flushes on the turn, and they're not going to really be in the pot pre-flop with that loose of a range. So it's hard to put the hijack on a range and say, what would you do if the hijack was a normal opponent? Because there's not really, normal opponents don't play the hand this way. They don't usually get to this point with these weaker sort of holdings. So it is a pretty interesting hand, and thank you for sharing. That's a cool spot. I hope everyone took something away from it. I'd like to open it up for questions here if I can do that. So let me see. Stop sharing. All right. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the Zoom call here so everyone can see us. Okay, there we go. So everybody should be able to see us now. There's chat that you can see there too. I think I did this right. I probably didn't, but yeah, I'd like to open this up for questions. So if someone's on the call and has questions, maybe drop them in the chat. Or if someone wants to jump on the show and has a question, go ahead and raise your hand and I will shout out. I just don't want like 10 people talking at once. So if anyone has a question on the hand in particular, yeah, I'd like to address it and answer anything you guys have. Try and provide some value for you guys. So hold on. Hold on. So I'm scrolling through here looking. A lot of you guys don't have video on. I guess some people are camera shy too, maybe. But yeah, otherwise people have questions in general. What's up, Ted, by the way? Hey, thanks for joining. So Andy has a random... Okay, so hold on. Let me address a few questions about the hand, and then I'll address questions in general, something like from Andy about dealing with downswings. Okay, Sushant has a question. If you were a bit deeper, would a bet fold strategy here work if we bet the river and get raised? So that's a good question. So let's say that in this spot here, we are deeper here on the river. Let me pull this back up. Let me pull this hand back up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So let's say that we're deeper here on the river. And we are, I don't know, like 2,000 deep or something. I think bet folding would be totally fine. If we have something like, here you go, now you can see me too. If we have something like, let me back up slightly. So when it's on us. So if we have something like, well, the hijack, we don't cover them. But if we have something like 2,000 and we're in the same stack size as mid position, if we bet and get raised, we would definitely fold. But we're not really ever going to get raised in this spot. Like, I guess we would have to have the hijack have more money. But if we get called, we're also beat too. So it doesn't really matter too much. But I would definitely be folding if I got raised. But honestly, this is a spot where if I got called, I would basically just muck my hand because you're never going to win. So getting raised or getting called is essentially the same thing, just because the range of hands that your opponent calls with or raises with always beats ours. But yes, you would definitely want to be bet folding here. That's a good strategy. Okay, let me answer more questions about this hand. Andy asks, what else apart from 9-9 or 4-4 does mid position lead the flop with? So let's go back to the flop, so everyone's kind of on the same page. That's a good question. So what else does he bet the flop with? Well, we talked about that a little bit earlier. I think he bets the flop with hands like Jack 10, Queen Jack, Queen 10 of clubs. Maybe he bets the flop with those hands in diamonds. Maybe not this opponent, but a different opponent might bet those hands. But this opponent probably won't. A different opponent might bet worse kings. This opponent might bet ace king with this bet size. But that's pretty much it. I mean, his range is very narrow on the flop here. And it's, it's hard to narrow down people's range very, very much and say like, well, he basically has a set or 3 combos of flush draws. That's it. But if you think about it, in a 3-bet pot against a tight, aggressive, good player like us, and the hijack, who's a maniac, a really tight, solid player that raised in a straddled pot in second position and called a 3-bet, simply isn't going to have that many hands in his range. He's just not going to have many hands to begin with. And of those hands he has, he's not going to lead with many of them. So you could really narrow down his range quite a lot when he takes these sorts of lines. So that's my process for narrowing down their range here. I would basically say there's not that many hands we beat. I wouldn't love this spot. I would call, but I wouldn't absolutely love this spot against this guy. I would be concerned about something like 9s or 4s. What are you going to do? You're never going to fold aces with an overpair and a backdoor flush draw. You're always going to call. But yeah, you're up against a big draw or a set, in my opinion. Or maybe a king. And against that range, it's a clear play to call. I mean, if you raise and get it in, you're not loving that spot at all. So I think that's the only real way to proceed. So, all right, let's see here. If anyone has any questions, jump in as well on the stream. I want to get to you guys first for joining the show. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for putting up with some tech difficulties. I think we did better than last week. Last week we didn't even have a stream, but this week we're doing okay. I finally got the video on the stream too. So let's see what else. Andy has an unrelated question that I think a lot of people will relate to, so I'm going to address that. Basically, how do you deal with downswings? And I think this is a good question too. I think, unrelated to the hand, so we can open it up for random questions now. Hold on, give me 2 seconds here. I'm just joining back in the meeting so everyone can see. Okay. That's a good question. I think the thing that takes the edge off the most, like the sort of bird's eye view on a downswing, is just not putting yourself in a spot before the downswing happens where you're extremely connected to the result because you're gambling with more money than you can afford to lose. So that's like the biggest one piece of advice that nobody follows, but if everyone did, it would be so much better situation. And that's just sort of like the truth, right? Like if a downswing is only real painful, like look at it this way. If you're playing, let's say you're playing, 2-5 and you lose, you have a bankroll. Let's say your bankroll is 25K. You're playing 2-5 and you lose 2,000. Like you're not really affected by the amount of money you lost because relative to what you have, you just, it's not a huge deal to you. It's not going to affect the way you're going to play your next session, right? Even if you lose 4,000, 5,000, it's a pretty substantial amount to lose. 7,000, it's pretty substantial to lose, but it's not like, you're not like, your back's not against the wall, right? You're like, okay, I have plenty of money to keep playing. If I keep playing, I'm going to start winning. It's pretty much impossible with my win rate to lose the rest of my bankroll playing this game. If I take a break, I come back, I'm fine. The problem with downswings is when you put yourself in a spot where you're playing, you have a 25K bankroll and then you're playing 10-20, and then you go on a downswing that's 10 or 15,000, and now you're in a spot where like this downswing is really meaningful, and not only are you at risk of going bust if you continue trying to grind at the current level, but doing something like going back to 2-5 when you're down 15,000 at 10-20 is now something that's like daunting, right? It almost seems pointless. You're like, well, I mean, it's going to take so long to make my money back. What's the point? Like, why would I do that? And mentally, you're not in a spot where you can even play anymore because, playing 2-5 when you're down 15K, when your bankroll is 25K, is just not going to happen. You're not going to play winning poker at 2-5. I don't care, who you are. It's just not human to do that, right? So basically, like the biggest way to deal with it is not put yourself in a spot where you're gambling with more money than you can afford to lose. Now, I understand that that's not always practical, and I would fair to say that a lot of people, most people in downswing, have maybe crossed that boundary from my experience in working with people. I've crossed that boundary myself in the past and learned the hard way from those situations. So I want to give some practical advice for people that are in that spot as well, because I'm empathetic to the reality that a lot of people are probably in that spot. So what I can only speak with what works for me, but what I like to do is put myself in a spot where I regain my confidence through doing something that I really enjoy, that I'm talented at, away from poker. So for example, like if I have something that gives me confidence, gives me my energy back, that doesn't involve poker, that I can immerse myself in for a short period of time until I see positive results in that activity, I go to that activity and then come back to poker when I've sort of made progress at something else. So for example, for me, maybe it's running my online business. Maybe it's a personal goal that I have, like learning something or doing something or accomplishing something that is outside of poker. And then when I come back to poker, I feel a little bit more recharged and less like my self-worth is wrapped up in how well my latest session is. And I think that's a big problem when poker becomes like a very large part of one's life, and that's like the main focus. When you lose, it becomes like a way of measuring sort of things. And because you can't really control the wins and losses, so to speak, all the time, it's quite it's quite problematic. And so one thing I recommend doing is finding something that that you're stimulated by outside of poker, and that gives you that sort of positivity, and something that you can control, right? Like if you're, for example, if you want to do something like a fitness goal, it's really easy to control the results of that and see positivity and success in that, because you can control all the variables, right? And then when you come back to poker, I feel like you'll be a little bit more recharged. But in short, sometimes you just have to let time pass, and taking a break, even though it's painful to do when you're down, because the last thing on your mind is like patience. Being patient really is important. And I think too many people try to, get out of it immediately, right? Like, so it's always easier to lose money than it is to make money. And so you can lose money way faster than you can make it. And like, if you lose 10K, you lose 10K out of your 25K bankroll in a week, you're probably not going to make it back in a week if you're practicing proper bankroll management. And so that's just something you have to accept and just take a step back from and say, you know what, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm not going to, like, trying to make it back quickly at the expense of, being smart with the rest of your money is the quickest way to go broke. So I do have more to say on the bankroll management subject, but I'd like to get to some other more questions. Bankroll management's, arguably the most important skill set of a poker player, in my opinion, because you could be the best player in the world, but if you can't manage your money, you definitely will be broke if you can't manage your emotions and your money. So how you handle downswings in those situations is very, very important. I spent a lot of my time on that, but that should be a good starting point. Don't gamble with more than you can afford to lose is the punchline. Woody has a question about the hand. Maybe I don't know if I want to go back to the hand. See if someone has a question about something else beside the hand, because we were kind of just like we're kind of in a groove off the hand now. We could go back to the hand, I guess, but would you ever raise the turn too? Oh, he sent it to me privately. Okay. So Andy has another question about the downswing, which I think we could segue into here. How do you evaluate your game during a downswing? That's a good question. I don't think that I really change how I would evaluate my game during a downswing or an upswing, other than in a downswing, it's more tempting to blame luck, and in an upswing, it's more tempting to blame skill. So I would basically do the opposite. In an upswing, I would be, I would always be looking, in both, regardless of what direction my poker results are going, I'm always looking for one fundamental thing, and that's what can I control that will improve my win rate? Like, what can I do that will make my game better? And actually, like, even after some of my best sessions, I'm honestly like going back to the study lab, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, and like writing down things that like I could have done better in that session. Actually, in fact, sometimes when I have winning sessions, I'm actually not extremely content because I know I could have won more. And it's not that I'm greedy, it's just that I measure my success based on how well I play relative to my capability. And I think that's a really important thing to start doing as a practice, is that you're always measuring yourself relative to yourself and relative to your potential. And so regardless of whether I win or lose, I'm always trying to say, what could I have done that was better? Like, could I have played better today? And a lot of times I leave a session winning in a little bit of discontent because I'm like, I really messed up this hand or two, or maybe I won because I got aces to kings. and I'm just a rock star. I just showed up and got lucky. So I won during the session, and I'm like pleased with the financial success of the session. But if I'm evaluating my game objectively, I'm actually not that happy, because the time that I should have double barreled, I checked, and the time that I should have, folded, I called, and whatever, and vice versa. And so I actually might have lost money on the session, I actually might not have won as much money as the results led me to believe. And so that's really important step to take in evaluating your sessions. And I actually have sessions where I lose, and I'm extremely content, because I was the one with kings to aces, and so of course I lost. But the other hands, the in-between hands, the hands that ultimately make up my long-term win rate, are the ones that I got a massive edge on, and I played really well, and I'm proud of those sessions. So I think I sort of evaluate my success independently of the results, and I think that's always been something I've done to some extent. But I think over time, you kind of hone in on that, and that becomes like something that gives you confidence going forward. There's so much you can't control in poker, and beginning to start the process of measuring your success based on how well you played, and being objective about that, I'll say that twice, because it's so hard. It's so important to do that, to really look deeply at your game and try and figure out what you can do to improve, is a way that gives me confidence. Because even if I am losing, I'm like, well, I'm focusing on what matters. So that's important stuff. I hope that helps, Andy, my man. Thanks for joining. You're a legend. Let's see. I want to get to anybody in the call. Nobody's joining me on the call. You guys have stage fright. Okay. Let's see. All right. What is the problem? I have to read questions, so give me 2 seconds. What's the problem? What if the problem is the opposite? Too much indifference. Okay. Galaxy S8 from his cell phone has a question. What if the problem is the opposite? Too much indifference when the money is significant. So I would venture to say that happens generally when people are on upswings. I think when your mental state of mind is even, it's hard to be indifferent when there's a lot of money at stake, right? So let's say, for example, you're playing, your game is 2-5 and you're even, right? You're 25K bankroll, you haven't played poker in a month or whatever. You come back to your game and you're playing 2-5, and the game gets kicked up to 2-5-10, and a massive whale sits down and the stakes escalate, and suddenly you're playing in a game where, your normal buy-in is 500, but now your buy-in is 2,000. It's hard to be in a spot where you're indifferent to the money, because you're so stimulated by the money that I feel like that's a time where you're going to be excited. So I feel like stimulation with money is a little bit like tolerance for wine or caffeine. In the beginning, a small amount has an impact on your system, right? You feel a cup of coffee if you don't never drink it. You feel a glass of wine, especially when you never drink, right? You feel, you could only run a short distance when you never run, right? So you have a tolerance for these things, and gambling and your brain chemistry, I think, is very much the same. I'm not, a scientist, but I'm sure if they looked at your levels of dopamine or whatever, they're firing off when you're gambling, and probably it makes sense to some extent when the more you do it, the more you build up a tolerance for it, right? And the more you need to be released to feel stimulation. So I would say that when you're even, you don't have this problem. When you're losing, you have this problem, but that's sort of a different question. And when you're winning too much, you sort of have this problem, because you're like, well, my bankroll went from 25K to 40K. Suddenly, $500 doesn't matter anymore in my normal 2-5 game, because I've won so much money taking a shot, or I've just on such a big upswing that when I measure my results over a month-long period, I've won 10K or 15K in a month or 2 months. How am I going to go sit back down at 2-5 and play well for $500 when mentally I'm up so much money? So I think that's a real problem that people face. And basically those situations are similar to the situations when you're losing and you've crossed what I call your pain threshold, right? So it's the opposite spectrum of the same problem, right? It's like two sides of the same coin. So when you're losing too much and your bankroll goes from 25K to 10K, and you're how do I sit down and play 2-5 and care because I'm down 15K? The perception is the same, right? So the mental perception is the same. It's just on the other side of the spectrum. So both are a problem, and they're I mean, I guess when you're losing, it's a bigger problem because you're spiraling downward. When you're winning, you're spiraling upward, but not spiraling upward, but you're going upward. But it's still a big problem because the question at stake is basically, can I play well, and am I giving up expectation by playing in this game because my mental game isn't there? And that's a real thing that you face, especially I faced this I think many times in Macau as well, when my default game was something like, let's say, 1K2K Hong Kong, which is like 125, 250 US, right? You divide by 7.76. So you're playing this game normally, and then you go play in the big game, and the size of the game is 10K, 20K. And it's 10 times bigger than the game that you usually play. And if you win in this game, it's fantastic. If you lose in this game, it's depressing. But either way, you're going to leave the game in a situation where mentally you go back to the win in that 1K, 2K game, or 300, 600, God forbid, you play 300, 600 game afterwards, and you're playing a 10th the size or 1/20th of the size of the game. How are you going to care about, a $1,500 raise pre-flop, folding a marginal hand in a certain spot? So, what I did that really helped me is like two things. One is I tried to engineer a way that my mind always stayed focused on the amount of money that I was playing with. And the second thing I would do is take breaks when I really couldn't overcome that sort of situation. So the first part I'll talk about a little bit for a second. I would always try and compartmentalize the poker money I was playing with like a life bankroll that I was playing with. And so managing those two things separately and treating them separately mentally, I think helps me respect the money of poker more. Because I think the problem with this, this threshold that's crossed where you kind of become indifferent to money on one end of the spectrum, is when the lines blur between the money that you're playing with in your personal life and the money that you're playing with in your professional life. And so, for example, if you start to kind of disrespect the value of money because you go out and you start punting on things that you wouldn't normally punt on because you're fluctuating so much in your career, right? Your poker winnings and losses are fluctuating so much that suddenly expenditures seem irrelevant and you seem indifferent to them. Then the lines blur completely, and then you actually become indifferent to money. But because I sort of treat those two things differently, and I'm trying to be very diligent about the expenditures that I have outside of poker and just try and treat money like value. And so I don't buy things that aren't worth what I pay for them. That approach helps me retain the value of money in my everyday life. And that keeps me really, really grounded, right? So if an example that's trivial is if you go out to I'll go back to the example in Macau. So we lived in Macau. We went out often to the Wynn and MGM and Mandarin, which are very expensive, nice hotels, which is where everybody lived and played poker, and it was connected to our building and whatnot. And there's a lot of opportunities to spend lots of money in designer stores or stuff like that, where there's things that are expensive, and it's easy to give in a temptation to say oh well, this X item is only this amount of money. That's one big blind. I'm just going to buy that item, right? So it's I want a new designer pair of sunglasses. They're $500. That's a big blind or small blind, whatever. I'm going to just buy that item because it doesn't really matter in the scope of my poker money. But that would be a catastrophic mistake, right? And I think the way to think about those things is what is the value of this item that I'm purchasing? This is 20x what it normally costs. And I'm going to not buy those things or buy those things very sparingly, right? And so I think having that perspective in terms of the real world and the fictitious world of poker really helps keep my perspective grounded. And so when I go back to playing 1K, 2K or 300, 600, or when you go back to playing whatever it is after you played whatever you played, it still seems really relevant because compared to the real world, that money is still very significant. So that's sort of my default state of operation with my mind, and I sort of have two different sides of money. I really I'm rather indifferent to money in poker because I don't if I make a mistake that costs me 7 big blinds, I don't think, oh my gosh, it's thousands of dollars. What could I have bought with this money? Because that money is separate than the money in the real world. But at the same time, when I go out and an avocado is $3, I'm that kind of annoys me to spend $3 on an avocado. It genuinely annoys me. Because it's not that I can't spend $3 on an avocado, but it's an avocado should cost $1, $1.50, $2 maybe. If I really want one, I'll buy it for $2.50. But that's sort of just genuinely how I operate. And I think this is something I learned over time. I didn't naturally operate this way. I was always indifferent in the beginning, but I think really forcing myself to do this with the help of my wife, like she's really good about this. She helped me a lot in this area. Is really helped make a big impact in the way I think about money in poker, and it really helped my game. Okay, I know that sounds kind of weird, but it really helped me like at the table to be more like respectful of money. So I hope that answers your question. The second thing I would do, kind of coming full circle, is basically like I would not play. So I would basically do what I would do with any other stimulant, right? I would reset my tolerance. So like if you're drinking every day and you're like, well, I don't get drunk unless I have 8 shots, like you're drinking too much. Like you just like, you could only tolerate so much, right? So like I would say, you need a system reset. You need to take some time off and come back. And like, you'll probably notice, you guys probably notice this, relate to this. I certainly notice this happens for me as well. Let's say I play a lot of poker. I build up that tolerance, right? And so suddenly I'm playing, I start jumping in a game. Let's say, for example, you start jumping in a 5-10 game. That's like your default game. You jump in 5-10. You're like, holy shit, $30 pre-flop. Oh my God, $30 is a lot of money. Like $30, like I could buy this and that with $30. I don't usually punt $30 on like, king 9 offsuit. I'm going to fold, whatever. Then you play poker for like a week. You maybe jump in a 10-20 game. Maybe you play 10-25 one day. You come back, whatever, and you're playing for like a month straight. Suddenly you're like $30, like whatever, $30. You suddenly don't really care that much about the money. It's just like, it's the same $30, right? It does the same thing. It has the same utility. Like inflation didn't change that much. It's not like your net worth like 5x'd in that time where $30 doesn't have the same utility. It has the same utility, but mentally it doesn't have the same utility. And so whenever I'm at that point, that's usually when, your tolerance is built up so much that you're not going to be able to make good decisions. And that's usually a time for a break. So, but I noticed that for me, when I first start playing after a break, I'm like super stimulated by the money. So even a small amount of money is like really stimulating. And then towards the end of my like poker trip, for example, if I haven't played for a while or whatever, you're just less stimulated by that. And that's just natural. It's just part of the way the human mind works, right? Just like alcohol and coffee and running and everything else. Okay. I'll take one more question. Let's do one more question. Who has another question? Let's see. I'm scrolling through some more questions here. If someone has a question in the show, just shout out because I have to scroll through all these videos. So someone feel free to just say hi and you could join. If you have a question live that you want to ask, that's totally fine too. Let's give you guys party. All right, then we get a sip of water. Okay. If you're stuck in your current session, would you want to join an action table where variance will be higher than the other table? Huh. Okay. I have some questions about this turn raise here. I have some questions about other subjects. Let's see. Let's talk about non-poker stuff. Because we've talked about this hand and things exhaustion. All right. Okay, I'll take one more question here from Andy. It says, if you are stuck in your current session, would you want to join an action table where variance will be higher than the other table? So if you're stuck in a current session, would you want to join an action table where variance will be higher than the other table? So I would say that like the way the question's framed is a little concerning because it looks to me like that's framed in a way that's like trying to get money back quickly. And while I don't think that's an impossible reality if you play, Andy's saying correct. Okay, so I had a good read. While I don't think that's an impossible reality, I think that mentality is a problem. Because you don't want to be in a spot where like you're measuring your wins and losses or your results based on a short-term arbitrary time window. So if you think about your poker career as like one long session, you're sort of always, you could argue that you're sort of always even, but if you look at it like a continuum, you're not really up or down what you're up or down in that session. It's just sort of arbitrary that we measure it that way because, we're bound to the limitations of reality, right? We have to like get up and leave the table and go to sleep and take a shower and eat. And so like, you can't just have a continuum of poker sessions. So like anytime you're down in a short amount of time and you're trying to like measure that arbitrarily, it's like automatically I would say a mistake. And it's important to recognize that it's quite arbitrary to measure your results in such a short amount of time. And mentally what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for disaster, because you're only going to win even if you're, one of the best players, or the most, not necessarily the best player, might not be the best way to describe it, but the most conservative types of players with a conservative playing style are only going to win something like 70% of the time. So they're still going to lose something like 30% of their sessions. So, you're setting yourself up for like 30% disaster at the very least, maybe even more, because of the way that you're arbitrarily measuring your results. So when you're saying like, oh, I'm down, that's fine to say after like a month, I think, which is like a reasonable amount of time, or something like 3 months, where it's important to sort of take a step back and reflect on your game and think about, whether you want to move up or down in stakes or whatever. But looking for like really short, get rich quick solutions, I think is a way to get yourself maybe in more trouble than you were already in. And so that mindset of like, should I move to another action table, or should I move up in stakes to play, or should I try and get this back? Should I double down? Like, that's just a mindset that I feel like is going to lead to making poor decisions. And so I would much rather see like patience in a long-term game here and taking a break, rather than trying to do the opposite. So I would actually go the opposite way and just say, taking a break would be a better solution than trying to jump into an action table, so to speak. I actually wouldn't, and like sort of lastly to wrap that up, I actually wouldn't really change my decision to play in an action game or a good game or take a shot in a game based on whether or not I was losing for that session or not. That's not really a factor I would consider. I would mainly just consider like, my overall bankroll management strategy. What's my bankroll management plan? How much can I afford to lose in this game? Is this game a profitable situation? And sort of tying it into that question, like, am I mentally in the right spot to make this decision, right? Like, am I mentally in a good place? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to take a shot. If not, the answer is no. But if I might be in there's been a lot of times where I'm losing a couple buy-ins and I'm like super confident because I know I'm playing well. I can mentally handle it. Elements of the game are lining up so that I feel like I can take advantage of the spots I've been waiting for. I know exactly what I'm looking for. I'm finding opportunities. It's just not going my way because of the cards. That actually gives me confidence. So like sometimes when I'm losing, I actually get more excited because I'm like, okay, I'm losing now, but I know that this is the right opportunity in the right situation because I've lined it up correctly, and I'm just waiting to take advantage of that. So some of the times I actually feel even more confident when I'm losing just because of elements that don't have to do with whether or not I'm winning or losing. So, cool. What's up? Someone's calling my name. What's up, Jesse? I don't see you, but I'm just, hey, man. Oh, there you are. Hey, I'll pin you. There you go. You have a spotlight. What's up? Say hey to everybody. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, so I guess thank you for the question. I guess I sort of neglected the question to some extent in the sense that, yes, you're right. Like, to address the specifics of the action higher variance tables, first I would say it's true that more action tables mean higher variance. So you're right to say that if you have a table that, the average VPIP, meaning the average amount of money that people put in the pot, or the average pot size is bigger, or the average amount of hands that people play is greater, you're going to have more action. You're also going to have more variance because you're going to be in more situations, and it's just the nature of the game. So I would say that even though there is more variance, there is also higher potential to earn, and your hourly rate will be higher as a result. And the reason is because when people are playing more hands, they're generally playing poorly and they're playing too many hands. So the difference in win rate, or the difference in your skill between you and your opponents, is going to be greater. That comes with, I don't want to say a cost, but that comes with a compromise, which is variance. And because that variance is going to be higher, it's something to be on the lookout for, because you're going to be incurring more swings in those style of games. So I would say it's generally true that the games that you win the most in are the games that have the highest variance, because like you'll be in a game, like I remember numerous games in Macau where, you know, the amount that someone can lose is, you know, 10x what you can lose. But because of that, you know, there's going to be 10x the size of pots, or 10 times as many big pots, just because they're like applying pressure and they're playing huge pots in marginal situations all the time. But because of that, you're going to have to get it in certain spots, and you're going to have to be forced to run the cards out in certain spots. And so there's going to be more variance in those spots. That being said, you get the chance to put your money in as, you know, 70, 80% favorite, whatever it's going to be, in spots where you're not going to get those opportunities otherwise against better, solid players. And so those are the opportunities that are the most lucrative. I mean, that's what you wait for, right? So if you're going to take a shot in a game, or you're going to have a big downswing, let it be in the spot where, oh, what's up, little one? He's cute. Let it be in a spot where where you have everything going for you, right? Like if you're going to have a losing session and you're going to go on to like a big downswing, or lose 4 buy-ins in a game, or, you know, go off or whatever it is, let it be in the game where there's an epic punter that is just going off the deep end, and, you know, at least you have a reason to lose the money, right? Like at least you could have won a lot of money. Like there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than going off in a game where you shouldn't have been in, and you couldn't have even won a lot to begin with, where like the upside of the game is like marginal and the downside is you just going off the deep end. Like those are the games that, like, if I look back on my career, those are the times I regret the most losing money. It's like losing money in a game where I shouldn't have even been there. But you're never going to say that about a game where there's just like epic opportunity. You're never going to be like, oh, I shouldn't have been here. I mean, like, you know, there's just like 4 whales going off. I mean, I should have just quit. You're never going to say that. So like, you know, lose in the right spots, right? If you're going to lose. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, poker's changed. I mean, markets move a lot towards efficiency. So it seemed to me like impossible. I was lucky to get in poker in 2003. So what I saw in 2003 was like, you know, I was aware at the time that this wasn't going to last forever, and that I was also aware that I wasn't very good. It was just that nobody else really knew what they were doing either. I feel the same way in something like the crypto space, where, by the way, I just started a new crypto YouTube. I share my thoughts and journey, and I get a lot of love and a lot of hate for it. It's amusing stuff. So if you want, you can follow it on Torelli. But I basically share like my journey, and it's like a similar situation where there's just like nobody really knows what's going on yet. There's not a lot of like incredible talent and professionals. That's going to change, right? There's too much money to be made, and there's too many people that have incentive to figure out what the hell is going on and play well. And poker was like that in 2003 as well, where like 2005, 2007, 2009, where just like there was just too many people playing badly that were still winning because the average level of competition was lower. And so that just generally got more efficient over time. We saw that in online poker. We saw that in some of the live poker scenes. You saw that in Macau quite a bit, where like I went there in 2012, 2013. And it was just insane. Like nobody knew. It was just like, it was like online poker when it first started, but the progression from then till recently, where, you know, the games just got more efficient and the markets got more efficient, people started coming from all over the world. That's just like a natural progression of any market, I think, and poker is no exception to that rule. So it's interesting to see that progress, but you see that in other sports as well. I mean, look at how mediocre players played tennis 60 years ago and like they were the best. Like just like the level of talent wasn't what it is today, and that's just what it is in a lot of games, and poker's no exception. But when there's money to be made, it makes a lot of sense to me that there's going to be a lot of people fighting for it. I think you're going to see that quite a bit in crypto coming up too, where it's like the Wild West going on right now. But that's going to change. Yeah, thanks, Jesse. What's up? So anyone else has a question? I want to get someone else on the show. You guys are all here joining. I want to make sure if anyone else wants to join. So many of you guys have no video, man. Why didn't you come with video? Could have saw you guys. So, all right, I think we'll wrap it up here. I have a few. I might take a more question if I see someone jump in. So some resources for you guys too, by the way. I'll have my admin drop it in here as well to the group. If you guys want sort of like a step-by-step that I use to make decisions at the table, I have a free download for you guys called a hand reading system. And it's something I use like in my hand of the days, basically, to walk through the step-by-step process to like making these decisions. That's really useful. It goes over what I call a hand range funnel, which helps think about how to identify your opponent's hand range. So basically how to think about how to construct their hand range and how to put them on a hand range, and then how to narrow that down systematically in a step-by-step process that's easy to follow. I made that available in a free download for you guys as part of our content at Conscious Poker. I encourage you guys to check that out. I think that's really going to help for that. There's also we also have preflop charts as well that are awesome, and push fold charts as well. So we have quite a bit of free content there that is available if you guys want. I think that's going to be cool. So that'll be at the link below this video as well. Second thing is I have an event coming up in LA, which I'm hosting a live event, which I'm really, really excited about. First of its kind. I'm going to be doing a weekend seminar in LA, March 10th and 11th. And if you want more info, there's a form that you guys can fill out here, and someone from my team will give you guys a call about an event in LA. We're basically going to be doing 2 days. We're going to attack poker from 2 different fronts: being better at playing poker and being a better poker player. So being better at playing poker is going to be a lot of the strategy content, like exploitative play versus game theory, or cash games versus tournaments, bet sizing strategy, hand range analysis, all the good fun stuff. And being a better poker player is going to be a lot of the stuff that we spent the latter half of this session talking about, like bankroll management, mindset, tilt control, focus, A-game poker, having a routine for your game, accomplishing your poker goals, etc. There's a form that was just dropped into the chat if you guys want. It's takes 2 minutes, fill it out, and someone from my team will get in touch with you guys if you're interested in joining LA March 10th and 11th. Super pumped about that. Get a chance to meet and connect with a lot of you guys in person. I've been wanting to put one of these together for ever, and finally finding a time to do it. So that's really exciting for me too. Yeah, what else? It's going to be, so someone's asking where it's going to be held. LA Marriott. It's going to be at the Marriott, 10th and the 11th. Yeah, so more details. If you fill out that form, someone will get in touch with you either via email or whatever. And answer any questions you guys have as well. So that's it. I think that's it for this show, man. You guys are awesome. If you guys want more from me, I'm everywhere on social media. So subscribe to this channel on YouTube. I'm sure you guys are. Otherwise, just follow Conscious Poker on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. We're putting out really new content on Instagram. That's one of the things I really want to focus on, where we're trying to do like quotes and hand of the days at Instagram, like daily little like mini hand of the day videos for Instagram. So you can follow Conscious Poker on there, trying to create more daily content for you guys. I'll try and do more of these hand of the day lives too. These are awesome. And yeah. So can I get admin to drop in this hand reading chart? Someone's asking about it. Hold on. Let me drop it in here. You could actually just subscribe to Conscious Poker on the homepage. And if you subscribe to the homepage of Conscious Poker right here, you will get access to that hand reading chart. You could also scroll down on Conscious Poker as well, and you can see there's push fold charts there as well. So quite a bit of content for you guys. If you haven't checked out the blogs there too, they're pretty awesome. We have like the blog on Texas Hold'em strategy I wrote it myself. It's like 14 pages. So a lot of content in one post. And if you guys haven't checked out the blogs there's some really good stuff. Yeah, a few people had other questions that were addressed here. If you have email questions, support at Conscious Poker is the best place. We read all our emails, so I read a lot of it too. Someone from my team will read it and get in touch with you. Trying to think of what else, man. You guys are awesome. I really thank everyone for being here. This was fun. I'd like to do more of these. Tech pending. I think tech was like 70% today. It was 0% last week, so that's exponential improvement. Hopefully we stay on track next week and we actually get it right. What's up? All right, we'll do one more question. Go ahead. Why can't I? Thank you. Shout out to my designer. Yeah, so check this out. This is our logo. So you can see the Tree of Life in there. But this is one of our products that I'm super stoked about. I don't know how we thought of this. I think it was a team effort. But basically, it's a necklace. And if you open the necklace, right, there's a little felt pad. Okay? And I'm doing a shameless plug. And then we have oils, conscious oils. And we have 2 oils. One of them, we actually went through a ton of effort to get these things made custom. But basically, you can put the oils on this pad, and then you can like be in a session, and you could be playing, and you can like kind of smell it, and it has this like calming sort of effect. So we have 2 oils. One is for like calming when you're on tilt, and one of them is for attention when you want to focus. And so I smelled like friggin' a ton of blends, and we came up with a proprietary blend where it's like every oil has its own property meant for these sort of things. So that was a fun product. So thank you for that. One of the things that one of the inspirations for it too was trying to do something in poker that wasn't like, because you play a zero-sum game, but life isn't a zero-sum game, and poker is. So one of the things that we wanted to make a big part of the brand was giving. And so what we did is we had the first month's membership. We actually changed our memberships, our membership plan at Conscious Poker. We had like monthly memberships for people that wanted to subscribe for training content. And one of the things we were doing was giving away the entire first month of our membership to charity. So I'm really proud. Last month we raised like $900 and we gave it to Reg, which is a charity in the poker community. Many of you guys know. They do for effective giving. So they try to find like where your money can be the most effective for giving. It's actually really interesting, like aside from what we're doing with them and our partnership with them. It's really interesting because like basically they have a way to figure out like where every dollar spent saves the most amount of lives. So it's like the most EV for your giving. And it's a really pokerish way to sort of think about giving, in the sense that like, well, you can save a life in this country for X amount, and you could save a life in this country for Y amount. And so it's like, where is the utility of your donation the highest? And so they're all about effective giving and effective altruism. And it's really, really cool. I guess I resonate a lot with that philosophy because it's just sort of the way the poker mind thinks. It's like, where can you get the most value for your bet, right? You're always value betting around the world. And so it's like, well, I could value bet with my donations. And so I was really excited about Reg and working with them. And so like we've decided to make them be the source of our donations. They basically do a lot of the work for you. Yes, thank you for plugging Reg there. There's regcharity.org. It's really cool because they basically do a lot of the work for you. So you could either give money to Reg directly and then they'll figure out which charity to give to, or they have charities that they recommend that are approved that sort of fit this rigorous, strict criteria for giving. And so we're continuing to try to find ways to incorporate charity within the brand. And one of the things that we were working with was doing our first month membership absolutely like 100% of the proceeds donated. We just changed our membership program. So we had 2 memberships. We had a grinder membership, which was $29 a month, and a pro membership was $197. And we basically combined all our memberships because we realized that it didn't really make sense to have both, and we wanted to have everybody kind of together to build like a bigger community. And so we changed the membership. We have everyone be a pro member now. So everyone that was a grinder member automatically, I don't know if I send out an email. I was going to do that this week, but if you guys are grinder members, you're going to become a pro member absolutely free. So you're going to pay $29 a month for life, but normal pro membership will be $99 for the first month and $49 going forward, and we're finding a way to give back like a part of that towards charity. So as we change our membership programs, we're going to change our relationship with giving, but it's all part of like, you know, trying to make the brand work from a business standpoint, and then trying to make a charitable standpoint work from that point as well. So that's like really one of the big things that inspired me about having a business in poker, because it's so much different than playing poker, right? Because playing poker is zero sum, but then having a business in poker is like finding a way to have a win-win collaboration. Made a lot of sense to me. One of the books that I think inspired that a lot was a book called Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey, who's the CEO of Whole Foods, and he talks a lot about finding these like strategic partnerships that worked really well for like the brand's mission and then his mission and whatever. Is inspiring book too. Okay, guys. Oh wait, hold on. Reese, someone's raising their hand digitally. That's so epic. So Reese is raising your hand digitally. Reese, do you have a question? That's so awesome. You've been raising your hand probably for like an hour, because I haven't noticed that. Just because you raised your hand digitally, which I've never seen before. I am going to answer whatever question you have. If you have a question, drop it in. Otherwise, I think I'm going to run soon. Oh man, Reese, where are you, buddy? You probably left. You're like, fuck this guy. He didn't answer any of my questions. I'm out of here. He's like, answer everyone else's question. He didn't answer mine, and he's gone. Where are you, Reese? I'm looking for you. There you are. Do you have a question, buddy? What's up? No. Hey, there you go. Oh, okay, good. I thought you were just like waiting for an hour. What's up, man? Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to think long term in a spot like that. I mean, I guess like from a default standpoint, thanks for the question. I guess from a default standpoint, you know, you want to play in the game that has the highest EV. Like, so, you know, if the EV of your game changes in such that, you know, because this guy left your game and went to another game, now you're like your hourly or your expectation is higher in another game. I would say probably the game wasn't that good to begin with, right? Like if one, I mean, unless he's a big whale, right? But if it's like one, you know, average player switches games and suddenly like your game becomes not beatable anymore, like it probably wasn't that good to begin with. And the other game is probably not that good either. If like you're only relying on that one player. Granted, there are some whales that I've played with where it's like, you know, one massive whale and that's all that matters. That's all you need. But I would say like just cautious to overestimate the value in terms of something like that, like of just like switching games. But also you have to be cognizant of like, you know, social dynamics, right? Like, you know, maybe you could get away with something like that once, but like, you know, you like, you know, people are generally, I think, you know, they might not be, someone like that might not be great at poker, but they're smart people. And so like, you know, I would find it a little bit awkward if you're just like following him around the casino. Yeah, for sure. You can find a creative way to do it, but there's only so many. Yeah, or you could call him lucky or something. I've heard some creative ones, or people are like, you know, this guy's lucky or this guy's unlucky or whatever. This guy's lucky, I want to sit next to him or something like that. Like you could sit to his left. Like I'm sure you could come up with a lot of creative things to do. I guess a little bit's like on, you know, it's like, I guess I would have to make sort of a game time decision on that. Like if there's, you know, 4 tables in your casino, it's one thing. If you're at the Commerce and there's like 150 tables, like nobody even knows what's going on or nobody's really paying attention to anything. Like sure, everyone's moving tables all the time. It's like fine. But I would say don't put too much emphasis on like one player. You know, that would be like a little curveball there. Guys, this was fun. We should do this more often. I don't know why I never do stuff like this. I guess because the tech was so overwhelming. Sure, I don't know who you are, but hello. Theo, hang on. Let me find Theo. Hey, what's up, Theo? Okay, there you are. Well, that's yeah. I can't speak for his personal motives, but I guess more attention. Go ahead. For sure. Yeah, I think obviously it got obviously like a lot more attention came to me as, in general. So I mean, is that good or bad? I don't know. Maybe some of those people are gonna like, I don't want to say like see my side of the situation, but maybe some of the people are going to follow me as a result of that. Maybe some people are not going to follow me. I'm sure some people that followed me are going to not want to follow me anymore. So I think it's like you're going to find all over the spectrum on what people think in general. I noticed that a lot of the like, how do I say this from a brand standpoint? A lot of my like target audience, I guess, wasn't. I guess we have different target audiences is the best way to sort of say it. I think that, you know, we're sort of almost speaking to different people within the poker community. And so I think some of the people that I wouldn't want to follow me anymore are not necessarily people that I was targeting to begin with. But I don't know. I'm just sort of targeting everyone to some extent. And the fact that, like, you know, there's some people that didn't want to follow me because of this event is, like, obviously, you know, stings a little bit because I've been around in poker a long time and have tried to be a good ambassador for the game. So it sort of sucks. But, I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's like, part of being in the limelight, you know, you're gonna have things come at you. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's different ways. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I could have done things differently too. I mean, obviously in retrospect now, when like we have the hindsight of everything and I could go back and like analyze every single word that was said and like every semantical thing, it's like, yeah, sure, I would say things slightly differently and do things slightly differently. But I try my best in the situation and it is what it is. You know, I never had any bad intentions. I could sleep at night. I'm sure that I was like not trying to take a shot with ace queen for 10K. Like it just, you know, of course that wasn't what I was trying to do, but, I think it in the way that it came across, it didn't necessarily come across that way to some people to begin with, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, I get that. I get that for sure. You get some creative ones too. I mean, some people are creative, some people are just like trolling. But it's like it's you know, social media is weird because you have like a lot of people that can like hide behind things or just say things and like just throw out like stupid comments and stuff like that. But I think like what I mentioned about like the target audience is like, you know, I would want to speak to those people and stuff too, but I think like a lot of times that they wouldn't have been my fans necessarily to begin with, or they wouldn't have been like I wouldn't have had a relationship with them to begin with, and so they probably wouldn't have been too much of be a part of the brand to begin with. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's not talk bad about other people, but yeah, he does have some. Yeah, I mean, he's very good at the content he does. You got to give it to him. You know, he's very good at the content he does, no question. So he has his own style and it works. You know, he's crushing it. So he's also crushing it in crypto too. So they're doing something right over there. So power to him. You know, it is what it is. I'm like, no hard feelings. You know, it's part of the game. So, all right, guys. If you have any, I'll answer one more question here and then I'll go. I've been saying that for like an hour. Do I have any books coming out? No. No, but I do have a course coming out. I have some courses coming out in conscious poker. You guys could stay tuned. Some really cool products coming out with what we're doing with the site. I'm really excited. So mainly courses because I feel like it's more conducive to like learning, like actually going through like a course format or our membership program, I think, where we have like strategy videos and we have like a course within the membership program where it's like a foundational course. So kind of like brings everybody up to the same level where it's like my 4-step process for thinking through decisions and making decisions at the poker table. And there's 4 different videos where there's like worksheets attached to them. and people can go through like the worksheets and actually like, implement stuff they learned into their own game and take action on different ideas that they have coming out of those videos. And so that's like a course that we built within our membership program that we're going to be releasing, part of our increase all of our members to a pro membership plan. We wanted to increase that course in there. And what I found was like, it was a course we were selling individually before privately, but I found that it was something that everyone kind of needed to be up on the same page so that we could be like, have everyone be on the same base level. And so we created a foundation course for that. But I just feel like courses are a more conducive way for people to learn, and like a course with a specific goal. So we have a course coming out called Hand Reading Mastery, which is all about specifically hand reading. It's just like exactly how to hand read within a course. So it's like videos and stuff to follow through a format. There's pre-flop videos and stuff like that too. So excited about that stuff. Stay on the lookout. I guess you guys are the first to know. And then, yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, and then some of these guys here are part of a mastermind course that I ran, which was limited to 20 people. I sent out a newsletter about it, so some of you guys might have been aware of it. But Gareth was in there, Ted. So basically a mastermind course where we did meetups like this, much more in depth, where I shared a lot of poker strategy and insights with them in meetup calls, and then we had a specific course that they followed as well over like a 2-month plan. So that was really fun too. Some of that content and the style I'm going to be sharing in this live mastermind that I'm hosting in LA. So that'll be fun too. I'm really excited for that because it's going to be 2 days. It's like, one of the things about being an influencer and having a brand is like so much of what you do is digital. And it's like, it's cool to do this and connect with you guys. Like this is the closest I get, but it's still like, I'm here in my room by like, look at this, I'm here by myself in my room. So doing something in person in LA is like, holy shit, I'm so excited. I could actually like meet people. I could like get a feel for like put a name to a face and like talk to people and then like go over stuff with them and like walk them through stuff in person and then like answer questions in person. We could have lunch together. Like just like so cool to do something like that. And so I'm really excited for that opportunity. Yeah. Anyway, if you have questions, there's a link there too. You guys can fill it out and someone will get back in touch with you. Anyway, guys, I got to run 7:30 here in LA, in Italy. I'm going to have dinner and I'll see you guys next week, hopefully on the show. Keep you posted. Stay tuned to my newsletter, consciouspoker.com. Stay tuned to our newsletter, and I'll put out a newsletter with a link so you guys can join this course again as well next week. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for everyone's time, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See you, everybody. See ya.